In today's Leeds news, Brandt Premier League switch, Gnonto and Piroe summer expectations, Justin every session has pressure, and City Leeds Trafford talks. Friday the 17th of July with your Leeds United news. Jer here at the Leeds View. We do these Monday to Friday as well as a transfer talk wrap up at the weekends and 2 podcasts a week. Check them out if you want to. Just want to make a point of pointing out last night's podcast, which was a lovely chat with David Bransby. David's son, Elliot Bransby, sadly passed away at the age of 30 years of age, and he has dedicated his time to creating a charity and memorial event in his memory. You can check it out. It's happening on July 25th. It's a lovely story about one of our own. He was a season ticket holder in the COP. That podcast is available. I'll link it again at the end of the day. It takes place on the 25th of July at the John Charles Centre for Sport. And if you want to donate and support this charity, which the funds will be going to the Martin House Children's Hospice, which we have donated to already, as we said yesterday, you can do so by buying raffle tickets for the raffles that will be available on the day. All of those links are down below in the description part of this video. Go and check it out if you want to. Also, we donated to the Leeds United Foundation as well, and we got ourselves a nice little Daniel Farke bobblehead. So very big thanks to the Leeds Foundation for sending that one out. It looks great. It looks great. Let's crack on with today's news, and we'll start off with Julian Brandt. Right, so a really significant change overnight on the Julian Brandt situation. Yesterday, obviously, we gave you the reports that came from Gazzetta dello Sport and Tutto Sport, who both said that the Premier League was not a destination that Julian Brandt was likely to be headed in. He wanted to go to Italy or he wanted to go to Spain, and it seems like any move to the Premier League was very much off the cards. However, that's taken a massive switch in the last 24 hours. An Italian journalist, Gianluca Di Marzio, on his website has a piece out that says the situation has changed and it may have swung back somewhat in Leeds United's favour. I'm not going to say completely in Leeds' favour because there's other people involved in this as well. Di Marzio has said that despite talks with Juventus and Roma, both of those clubs, in his words, have drifted away from Brandt and are moving in a different direction on different targets. And in the piece on his website, he said this: several Premier League clubs have begun to make concrete moves, applying significant pressure to convince the 1996-born player. At the moment, the English top flight represents the most likely destination for the next chapter of Brandt's career. The likely next destination, but other Premier League clubs being mentioned. But this is a very meaningful development. And in the piece on Di Marzio's sites, he says that this situation has changed in the last 12 to 24 hours, which means something significant has happened during that period of time. Now, Leeds are a confirmed club of interest. We all know that. They're mentioned by Italian journalists. The YP and the Athletic have confirmed that Leeds United are an interested club in them. Saying other Premier League clubs are interested is one thing. None of those clubs have been mentioned. And we've seen the kind of summer it is. Everyone's trying to keep their mouths closed and as little information out in the press as they can to try and get these players in and not be hijacked by other clubs. They're seeing what's happened in a couple of transfers. So it does make sense that no one wants to be known about this, especially with a free agent. It makes it a little bit easier. You're only dealing with his agency and not a selling club. Obviously, there's a talk about Dortmund wanting maybe to bring him back. That doesn't look like it's a runner, at least right now. However, from Leeds' perspective, if Leeds could sell this project to him, like they've sold it to Muharemovic, then maybe Leeds would be able to bring in a very important player for next season. But getting a player of Julian Brandt's quality for free definitely allows Leeds to stretch the rest of their budget over the rest of the side and over players they might want to bring in. The likes of a James Trafford or the likes of a number 9. Yes, Julian Brandt's wages would be significantly high, but still removing that massive transfer fee for a player of his quality. 30 years of age, still has good years ahead of him, is in good shape, was very good last season in the Bundesliga, so by no means past his best. And even for a couple of seasons while Leeds try and establish themselves in the Premier League, he'd be a very good player. And don't forget, we brought Pablo Hernandez in when he was 2 years older than Julian Brandt, and look at the impact he had in that time, albeit in the Championship. But I do think the timing on this situation is notable. The fact that we've brought Muharemovic in and we've sold this project to him as well, maybe that's changed the situation. Despite the fact we said yesterday about Shea Charles, there's now reports that maybe it's getting closer to being done. I'm not getting involved in it anymore. Leeds are flying out to the USA on Tuesday for their pre-season camp, and you would imagine Daniel Farke wants to have as many of the players that would be involved in that first 11 involved in that pre-season as possible. So maybe they're trying to rush to try and get some of these over the line now that Muharemovic is in the door. Again, if they can get Trafford in, which we'll talk about in a few minutes' time, that would be a huge summer and would be one of the most impressive summers from a transfer perspective that Leeds have had in quite a long time. I mean, I was a much younger man when they had summers like this before, so it's interesting, but obviously things can change. Other clubs can get involved. A club of European football could sell a project to him. He might want to play European football. But yeah, we'll have to see where this one runs. But it's an interesting development in the last 24 hours, if nothing else. We'll move on. So Joe Piroe and Wilfried Gnonto are both back in pre-season training, and both are expected to fly out with the squad on Tuesday to the USA for the pre-season tour. They've been pictured in training sessions as well, but their presence in pre-season and in the club's media doesn't mean both players will still be here come the start of the season. And according to Isaac Johnson in Leeds Live, he believes both of them will move on before the summer window closes. Between both players, Piroe and Gnonto only managed just 5 appearances in the Premier League last season. Joe Piroe hasn't started a Premier League game for Leeds in almost a year, and Wilfried Gnonto's last start in the Premier League came back in November. Obviously, both of them have had appearances in the FA Cup. Both have scored goals in the FA Cup. But from the players' perspectives, that's not what they're going to want and not what they will want going into next season. Either the odd cameo appearance, the odd Premier League appearance, and starting FA Cup matches. But Piroe did speak last year about wanting to fight for his position at the club, which shows a huge amount of character from the player. But he also spoke in January about sorting out his future this summer, which is still likely to happen. A championship return seems like the most obvious thing for Joel Piroe, but according to Isaac Johnson, that's unlikely as the player himself doesn't want to move back to the championship, and a move to a European club is far more likely. Now, the problem with this is hasn't been any concrete offers for him at this moment in time. Gnonto, as we know, has got interest from Freiburg, but that hasn't materialised into a formal offer or a concrete move at this moment in time. That can change over the course of the summer. They might want to wait towards the end of the summer to see if they can get a better valuation on the player. But both players do get this week, they will get next week, and they will get the pre-season camp in the US to try and convince Daniel Farke that they should have a place in the squad next season. I personally would like to see at least Wilfried Gnonto remain at the club going into next year. But the general belief is that both Piroe and Gnonto will move away from Leeds United before this summer's transfer window is shut. And for both of them, you would hope that their futures can get sorted out as soon as possible for their own footballing careers. And from a Leeds United perspective, that Leeds can bring in that cash that can hopefully help Leeds to add to the squad and reshape the squad in the way that Daniel Farke wants going into next season or this season. There's not, as I say, no concrete offers on the table for either players right now. Tons of rumoured interest in them, but at this point, nothing concrete to talk about. Now, the other side to this is seeing how abruptly and quietly Isaac Schmidt left the club. Don't be shocked if moves just pop up out of nowhere for either two, especially how Leeds are behaving in this window. More quiet and stealthy than they have been in previous windows, and they've been pretty quiet in other windows as well. So we'll see. Let's move on. A nice little insight from James Justin over on the official LeedsUnited.com site. He spoke about pre-season training. He spoke about the expectation of the fans and a really standout season in his debut season for Leeds. James Justin, we were told this time last year, or later on last year, that he was washed and he was done, and Leicester had their pants down on the transfer. James Justin played 34 times for Leeds last season, had a phenomenal season, made a big impact and a real calming influence at the back line, and showed real versatility for Leeds as well. He's also another player of the Leeds United squad who tied the knot over the course of this summer, adding to that with Brendan Aronson, Alex Cairns and Pascal Strout before he moved away from the club. So massive congratulations to James Justin and his wife on tying the knot. But this season, James Justin gets a full pre-season with the squad and maybe gets a chance to push for a starting position coming into the start of the season. But he has spoken about the pressure of being at Leeds United, what goes into every training session, along with other topics. But we'll start off with his opinion on what's needed in training and matches. He spoke to LeedsUnited.com and said this: "Every game comes with pressure, every training session comes with pressure, and there's a lot of pressure at such a big club like this. So it's key to have a bit of a reset during the summer." He also spoke about the arrival of Harry Wilson. He's had a chance to see him over this week in training and spoke very warmly and very positively about what Leeds have brought in. And he said this: "We know the type of player he is and what he has done over the last few seasons. He is a special player and he has got the quality that is hard to come by, to be honest. It would be great to see that impact and how he links up with him on that right-hand side of the pitch when they do finally get a chance to play together over the course of the season. But Justin was also asked about the upcoming season and about the expectation level going into this year after last year. And as you expect, we got a very calm and measured answer from a very calm and measured professional. And he said this: the first thing is to get to the safety mark. That's the baseline. Last season was great. We finished 14th. And that was a good start. But backing it up season after season and growing on things is the most difficult part. And it is the most difficult part as Leeds keep pushing and trying to establish themselves as a Premier League outfit. You look at the sides that have come up this year. Leeds have got a real chance this summer if they can get the signings they want in, build on what they had last year. Good squad there, and try and push on and open a gap away from those sides as early as possible in the league and take that pressure off and look up rather than looking down. But it is a nice bit of insight from one of the senior professionals at the club. You can check out the full piece as well. It's a really interesting read over on leedsunited.com and get JJ's insight into what it's needed to be a Leeds player and play for the club at this moment in time. Anyway, let's move on and talk about James Trafford. Right, the name that isn't going to go away, and the one that, despite all the noise about other goalkeepers, is believed to be Leeds' number one target for that number one spot. And if other reports are to be believed, he's Leeds United's number one target, full stop, this summer, considering we just spent £34 million on a centre half. Now, Leeds, as we expect, are going to have a huge amount of competition for James Trafford. That might have gotten just a little bit easier as Newcastle United are now believed to be moving for Brighton goalkeeper Carl Rushworth, who spent last season on loan at Coventry City and was very impressive in the Championship, and he is expected to go into their side if they can get him and compete for the number one spot. So Leeds might have a bit less competition to move for James Trafford. Now, there's also reports that Leeds may have already held talks with Manchester City about bringing in Trafford and might have asked City to keep them up to date on the player's situation. So with England's World Cup campaign coming to an end, they've got the third place playoff this weekend. This deal could start to pick up some pace. And if Leeds, and it is still a big if at this moment in time, are genuinely interested in James Trafford, we could start seeing some concrete move for the player very, very soon. Trafford didn't want to do anything about his future till after the World Cup was finished. Trafford spoke towards the end of last season about his future at Manchester City. He's keen to move away from the club and he's keen to be a first choice player next season. And despite Leeds' links to Zion Suzuki and Zetterstrom and everybody else, Leeds might want to bring in a proven entity in goal next season after the situations with Lucas Perry last season, which wasn't that bad, but they still might want to bring in someone who doesn't have to adjust to the league, understands the expectation, and also gets the pressure of playing for Leeds United and big clubs in the Premier League. City are also believed to be willing to allow a move and won't stand in James Trafford's way to move if they can get the valuation that they want. Now, that valuation, according to Team Talk, is between 35 million and 40 million pounds. So if Leeds did get him and did make a move, they're getting close to the record transfer, if not a full record transfer. Full stop. Now, Team Talk claim that Leeds are positioning themselves now to make that move for James Trafford, but they will have significant competition. That has been underlined by them. Now, Graham Smith in the Yorkshire Evening Post has backed up this claim. And speaking on the Inside Ellen Road podcast, Graham Smith said this: I think Leeds are waiting on Trafford. I think Trafford's future will be decided now that the World Cup is over. And I think Leeds are waiting for them to get themselves into a good position and jostle with others to try and get him in. Dream signing if they can get it over the line. It is a dream signing because it's another massive player to come in to solidify that spine of the team that Leeds appear to be working on over the course of this summer. A new centre-back at left centre-back of significant potential. A goalkeeper, potentially Shea Charles if that happens. Another number 10 as well with Julian Brandt. And maybe even another number 9. This is a real interesting one. For me, it's a massive show of intent if they can get this done. And again, assuming there is genuine interest in him, it will get close to or break the club's transfer record. And you're getting a player who would likely be England's number 1 over the next couple of seasons. For me, this feels very similar to when Leeds brought Nigel Martin in. Obviously, it's a different era. Obviously, slightly different circumstances around it. But again, it's just solidifying that position with a proven entity and someone who has got plenty of years ahead of him to give to the club and can grow with Leeds as Leeds grow into the Premier League. And again, if they can get him in, it would signal an incredible transfer window for Leeds United. It is all still ifs, buts, and maybes right now. But at least there's intent there. And if you look at the kind of players they're looking at, you've got Wilson in the door, you've got Muharemovic, who's doing the second part of his medical this morning before he gets announced by the club, a James Trafford, a Julian Brandt, even a Shea Charles, who's got a very high ceiling for the future. these are significant moves from the clubs, and they're spending, as they said, more money on less players. 10 players this year, you're looking at 5 to 6 this year. And if they get exits, then maybe they can spend that on a couple of fringe players as well, and maybe even a few loan signings. We will have Steve Carlisle on the podcast next Wednesday to give us the inside detail on what the hell SCR actually means, because it is not as black and white as we keep trying to figure out. Steve has been great help to me over the last couple of weeks and sends me little notes and nudges on things that I'll say and what I should be saying when it comes to SCR. So I've asked Steve to come onto the channel and talk about SCR in a bit more detail. I know it's football finance, but if you're interested in what it actually means and understanding it, Steve will come on with some scenarios to try and make it a bit more simple for us all to understand, because it is not as black and white as 12 months, net spends and ins and outs. Am I right, Steve? I am, because he's going to text me now and tell me I am. So there we go. Steve's going to come in and join us next week. Also, check out last night's podcast with David Bransby. It's a real worthwhile. It's one of our own. A season ticket holder in the copy passed away at a very, very young age, and a father who's dedicated his time to memorialising his son and creating a fantastic event on a day for kids, for family, of music, of celebrities, and of football as well. You can check that out with the links down below. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.